Thank you, everyone. So today we have learned a lot about the Dropbox platform. But what does this mean for us when it comes to the product design of things? So every day at Dropbox, we ask ourselves one question. And that is, how do we build products and services that reaches everyone in today's fragmented environment? And a question that we actually get as designers is, why do we have so many designers at Dropbox? Because we're building the next generation platform. And that takes a lot of work, a lot of invisible work. And so we all know that to build something truly simple but powerful, it takes a lot of work under the hood. Great technology should feel like magic. You know, it just works. That's something that's really good. Like, take anything that you really like and think about it for a second. Like, it's something that really works, yes? And so product design is not as much how something looks, but more about how something works on the inside. So that makes this way more important. And today, our users must live within silos where the information is stored, right? So you create something in one app, just to later find that you can't access that in a different app in her service. That's kind of crazy. I think that's kind of crazy, right? And so we're fixing this, right, with the Dropbox platform. It no longer makes sense to restrict our users into the silos of information. With the Dropbox platform, we can kind of focus on building great user experiences instead of trying to solve this one problem. So we shouldn't care where and how our users access their stuff, just that it's incredibly easy for them to do so. Well, a third question, how do we reach every single one of these potential users? They kind of spread out, right? Well, here's why this is important, to reach all these users. So we know that not too long ago, a few big fish ruled the pond. It made sense to focus on only one of these fishes, and the users will kind of exist there already or come with them. But the pond grew into a lake, computers in our pockets, tablets in our kitchens, you know, laptops and computers of various different flavors. And all of a sudden, your users are spread out across a number of different devices and environments. This is today, right? But how about tomorrow? Are we going towards something that is more of a lake and an ocean? I think so. We have screens everywhere in the future, I think, in our pockets, in our cars, on our fridges, on our watches, pretty much everywhere. And so our users are spread out over this vast sea. And so how do we reach them when we no longer can target a specific environment, when we no longer can eat just one fish? Of course, with the Dropbox platform, you can do this. So your app can reach everybody by simply leaving the work, the hard work, actually, to keep all this user stuff in a central location. And you guys can focus on building fantastic user experiences. And with that said, how the heck do you build great user experiences? I would like to introduce my friend and colleague, fellow designer, Adam Pulselli.
Thank you. Thank you, Rasmus. So, how do you design a product that exists happily across all variety of devices? Or, to put this another way, how do we design for everyone? So this is a problem that we're tackling on a daily basis at Dropbox. Our product lives on millions of phones, tablets, and computers. And so when we want to change something or add some new functionality to our app, we want to make sure that we're improving the experience for as many of our users as possible. And our users are all over the place. In doing this, designing something that reaches everyone is really, really challenging. For example, some of the challenges. Every environment has its own interface and interaction guidelines, its own look and feel. So these guidelines dictate what a button should look like or how a user should navigate through an app in that environment. And if you simply port the same design across all environments, you're going to confuse your users. People that have spent countless hours in their own environment growing very comfortable and coming to have certain expectations from it. The last thing any of us wants to do is confuse our users, people that we're lucky to have giving us their time and attention in the first place. And these environments and devices come in a growing variety of form factors. As Rasmus talked about, you've got small screens and large screens, phones, tablets, phablets, TVs, smartwatches. We could go on and on. It is becoming less and less feasible to think about designing one separate experience at a time, because there are simply too many edge cases and too many screen shapes, and your product needs to adapt to all of them if you want to reach as many people as possible. So at Dropbox, we know all about these challenges. We have a huge growing user base, and these people are spread across a wide variety of devices. And these challenges become increasingly difficult as the number of people using Dropbox multiplies and as the devices that they use to access their stuff on Dropbox becomes more and more diverse. Basically, there are going to be a lot of fish, and we can't do anything about that. That's inevitable, and it's already happening. So let's take a step back, and let's look at this from a different angle. Let's think about the people we're trying to reach, the people whose lives we're ultimately trying to improve. Because after all, it's why we're all here. It's why we build great products, because we want to help people out and make their lives better, even if only in a small way. And so what's the one thing that we all want our users to have? A great experience, right? A really good experience. And so, please, can we stop fighting about fish? Which fish is bigger, or which new tablets might hit the market next year? Let's stop arguing about which environment is better, because the Dropbox platform makes it so that we don't have to worry about that anymore. You don't have to choose just one environment. You can design for all of them. And so instead, let's focus on building great experiences for everybody. And so this approach requires some really solid design principles. Principles that are going to help you make good product decisions no matter which environment you're designing for. This way you don't just design a bunch of apps that don't feel like they don't have a lot to do with each other, and instead you create one holistic experience, and perhaps most importantly, a really enjoyable experience for your users. And at Dropbox, I think we've really nailed down a few of these design principles, and we'd like to share them with you so you can start to think about how you could apply them to your own product design. So first, when in doubt, leave it out. I'm sure we would all agree that it's much better to do a few things very well than it is to do a whole lot of stuff and be master of none. And the idea here is to compete on user experience, not on the number of features that you can cram into your app. Because when you cut out the weak pieces, you improve the overall product. You can now focus your time and attention on improving the core functionality. And the core functionality of your app is why it exists in the first place. It's why people are showing up at the front door to give your app a try. When you keep it simple, it is much easier and much faster to design a high-quality experience for everyone, no matter where they are. And so the bottom line here is just keep it simple. Second, the product should feel native to its environment. However, we think that a great experience is far more important than slavishly adhering to an environment's UI guidelines. So if you think you can do something better, you should go ahead and do it. If you think you can improve on an existing UI model, we think that's okay. This industry is still pretty young, and a lot of these models are really, really young still. And so I think there's a lot of room for improvement, so go ahead and do it. And so while you should always have an environment's UI guidelines in mind, try to think of it as advice for how to build a good product, rather than as this rule book that you need to strictly adhere to at all times. In the end, the goal is for your apps to feel like a family and like they belong together, while still acknowledging the different capabilities and expectations of each individual environment. And so while your apps won't look exactly the same, they should feel like they were designed by one person. A feature should work the same way across all environments, so that when a user comes across your app in a new environment, they recognize it and they can apply what they've already learned. This way, they're not thinking about how the app works, they're simply using your app and enjoying it. Because let's face it, no one wants to spend time thinking about how a product works. We think that's our job as the designers and builders of these products, to think about how they work so our users don't have to. And so let's look at an example of how we took a dose of our own medicine and applied some of these principles to a real-life feature that we recently designed at Dropbox and that we're currently building on web, desktop, and mobile. So this is Dropbox notifications. And when we started working on this a few months ago, we knew right off the bat that it was really important for this feature to be available everywhere. And that's because a notification system needs to be a very deterministic system. So when my mom shares a photo album with me on Dropbox, she needs to feel very confident that when she clicks share, I instantly know about those photos, whether I'm at home, at work, or on the go. And if the product doesn't exist everywhere, if notifications don't exist everywhere, she's not going to feel confident that I know about those, and she's not going to use the system. So we kept it very simple. We wanted something that just works, and we also wanted something that we could easily extend in the future as we need to add new types of notifications. And so by keeping it simple, we were able to build a really reliable notification system that people trust and that people are using all the time. So you'll also notice that each implementation feels very native to its own environment. Taken all together, they definitely feel like a family. You can tell they belong together. But when we zoom in and look up close, each feels at home in its surrounding environment. And so little things like even just font choices help us accomplish things like this. So for example, on our website, Dropbox.com, we use the font Open Sans. And we could have gone ahead and used this font when we were designing the new notifications Dropbox tray, which is kind of Dropbox 2.0. But we thought that would feel kind of funny. You open it up, you see this font that you're not used to seeing. It's going to feel kind of uncanny. So we went ahead and we just used a system font, which is Lucida Grande. And we think it turned out really well. We think it looks native and it feels at home. So subtle visual differences like these help each of these UIs feel at home, while the overall layout, colors, and the consistent iconography ensure that they feel like a family. And it ensures that they feel recognizably Dropbox. And so we've talked about how they look and how they feel, but how does it work? So when you get a new notification, you'll get an alert. You'll get a push either on your phone or on your computer. Doesn't matter where you are. And when you open it up, new notifications will be highlighted with a blue background. And so this is a simple thing, but what's so great about it is once users learn that blue equals new, they never have to think about it again. They've learned it once, they've learned it everywhere. Clicking or tapping on a notification will take you to the follow-up file or folder, and accepting or declining a shared folder invite works exactly the same way everywhere. You learn it once, you never have to learn it again. This way, users aren't thinking about how the system works. They just have to use it. And so these are just a few of our guiding design principles, but as you can see, they help us build this really great, really high-quality notifications experience for everyone that uses Dropbox, no matter how they choose to use it. And as we have to support new environments in the future, we think it's actually going to be really easy because the system was designed to live everywhere and anywhere. It was designed for everyone. And we think that if you guys apply some of these principles to your own product design, you'll be equally as successful. So Rasmus, why don't you join me and we'll finish this up.
So, the Dropbox platform, it frees you to use your stuff from devices and services. And that's great. And so with all our things in one place, means that we can now focus on building great user experiences. You know, instead of worrying like where and how customers access, their stuff. Okay, and with that said, we're open for questions. There's a mic here in the center. And please just step up if you have a question.
Hi there.
Hello.
So you said that you strive to have each of your apps feel native on all the platforms that you're building for. And I've noticed that in OS 10, the icon that you guys use up in the dock is not black and white like all the other ones. You've stuck with the actual colored Dropbox logo. Why is that?
So that icon is something that's been there for a very long time,
right,
and that a lot of people at the company feel very passionate about. But it has come under scrutiny lately because it does stand out and because it doesn't feel native to its environment. And these things are always a trade-off, right? You're not always going to be able to settle on like something that's perfectly branded and perfectly in line with the UI or with the environment you're designing for. But yeah, we've talked about that a lot lately, and you might see it change soon.
Okay, cool.
How important is user testing, and how do you integrate user research in the design process?
We do some fair amount of user research. I believe that it's a balance between being in the profession of a designer, which is in some forms like being a software engineer, for instance. Like you will build up a kind of like almost an intuition of what will work well and what won't work well. If you go about every single detail in terms of like backed by numbers and user research, you're facing kind of the traveling salesman problem almost. It's way too complex to actually build something completely based on numbers. So we see user research as an aid in decision making.
Thanks.
Looks like we have another question. Yeah.
Hi, just wonder if you could talk about how you're using Dropbox internally to manage your workflows and to collaborate.
So let us both tell a little story each. We use a lot of shared folders internally at Dropbox together. Sometimes we create a shared folder for an audience, kind of the design team. We have a giant folder. You don't want to sneeze on that folder. That's a bad idea. And sometimes we create small shared folders for small, kind of more or less temporary projects.
Yeah, I mean, like Rasmus said, we all use it. We all love it, of course. Design uses it. We've got a shared folder. I use it all the time to hand off assets to my engineers. It's super useful. They know instantly as soon as those assets have been updated. And yeah, we love it.
Hi, Frank Gillette.
Hi.
From the point of view of designing user experience, can you say something about the experience of helping people sort of manage their work and personal lives, how you integrate that, how you separate that? Because right now, it feels kind of split, as was mentioned in the Q&A after one of the other sessions. And I'm just thinking from a design point of view, how do you all think about that, and where's that going to go? Because, of course, the business clients, whom we heard about in the previous session, want to know that all their stuff's safe, and the individual wants to know that life is really simple and they don't have to think about a lot of different things, and the right things are at hand at the right times.
Sure.
It's a very tricky question.
Yeah.
We're working on something. We can't tell you much. It is definitely a use case that is becoming increasingly more common, right? And we also have, kind of like adding to your question almost like here, we have a lot of users who are using their regular non-business account for both work things and for personal things, like you have your baby photos and in kind of like the camera folder, right? And then you have like your Excel spreadsheet for some business purposes in a different shared folder, and they kind of live together. It's a hard solution. What we usually do at Dropbox when it comes to design is that we take a step back. We try to understand why people need something and why it's important. And then we understand what it means. And from there, we kind of create a synthesis of an ideal solution. And when we have an ideal solution in mind, then we can start plotting our path towards that ideal solution. So we like to take our time to build something truly great that can survive over time, rather than to fix something up close, which is why this is lagging a little bit behind. Feel free to grab us later, and we can talk more about this.
I have a question in regards to how you guys deal with user experiences in regards to shared folders versus folders that are private to an individual. For example, for a shared folder case where a lot of people are collaborating on whatever files that they have, you can run into some major problems. For example, somebody might be deleting an entire section of a shared folder, which causes problems to other individuals who are also subscribed to the shared folder. And to them, it just seems like Dropbox deleted all of their files. So, I mean, from the context of private, this doesn't really occur as much, because if you delete your folder, you know you deleted it. But how do you kind of address the user experiences from a shared perspective versus a private perspective?
So this is a really difficult challenge because Dropbox is all about keeping it as simple as possible, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about happens because we built such a simple product, right? And a lot of that could be fixed with things like permissions, and you've got all these different kinds of permissions, who can touch what, who can see what, who can delete things, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just thinking really hard about those features and whether they make sense to us, or which which ways we want to fold them into Dropbox and still maintain such a simple product that just works. And that's a challenge. It's really challenging to design something simple. As Rasmus said earlier in the talk, that's not easy. So we are working on things like that to improve that user experience. We're very aware of the fact that there's problems there, but we're working on it.
We have time for one final question.
When you're designing over multiple platforms, do you reuse elements like the same PNG over 2 platforms, or do you write something different for each platform, a different file?
I think there's a balance there. For instance, there's really multiple answers to this question. But I think there's a balance between iconography and kind of like symbolism and the implementation, if you will, of a symbol. It could be as, in a previous slide that Adam had here just a few minutes ago, we saw the different notification implementations on 3 different platforms. We had OS X, we have the website, and we had Android, right? And I don't know if you paid notice, but the buttons were very similar, but they were actually different, right? So like on Android, you have something that's a little bit flatter, a little less kind of 3D experience, right? And then on the website, you have a little bit more bevels, and on OS X, it's a little bit rounded, right? So, but it's an expression of the same button. They have rounded corners, they're blue, they're in the same position, they express the same things, but they have slightly different pixels, that kind of match up. Same with icons and symbols. Okay, thank you very much. Adam and I will be out by the platform kind of lounge. I think it's called the platform help desk. It's over in that corner outside here. Just feel free to come grab us.
Thank you.